Now, as you all know, I love paying taxes. The idea that my hard-earned money that I toiled away for will be ripped right out of my hand by the government and efficiently utilised to teach Pakistan about bisexual people. Money well spent. Despite this, people, for whatever reason, have a visceral hatred towards tax collectors, being the most efficient branch of any government that you will end up dealing with the most. This results in certain people becoming so enraged by their supposedly mismanaged tithes that they end up issuing a de facto fatwa on the very concept of taxation. This is the story of a man who declared war on the IRS and decided to 9/11 one of their buildings, which, for legal reasons, I have to formally and unequivocally disavow. The 2010 IRS attack. Please leave a like and a comment on this video because it really helps me in the algorithm. Hey, you know how you're somewhat fond of surfing the internet, gaming and being generally weird online? Well, guess what? You're being watched and tracked right now and not by me. What's that? You don't want that? Well, good thing today's video is sponsored by Proton VPN. Proton VPN is a service that will help you reclaim your privacy and security when surfing the World Wide Web. What is a VPN and how will it help? Why, I am glad I made you ask. A VPN, or a virtual private network, is a piece of software that allows you to virtually extend your private network and functionally mask your IP address to stop people from tracking your browsing and location. But don't go and think that a VPN is just for privacy and security. Oh, no, because with Proton VPN, you can be cheeky and enjoy shows and movies from around the world with the mere click of a button. Take, for example, the fact that I am currently Dutch. I know, I already feel dirty. But with a quick flick of the button, I have now transmogrified into a Japanese man. Sugoi indeed. With seamless integration on Windows, Mac and Linux, and even built with browser support in mind, security and peace of mind has never been so easy. So click the link in the description box down below for 64% off. Again, click the link in the description box down below to get 64% off. Let us begin by discussing our attacker, one Andrew Joseph Stack III, a rootin' Texan terminal technician based out of Schofield Farms, North Austin. Growing up in Pennsylvania as a middle child orphan, he attended Harrisburg Area Community College in 1975, but he never actually graduated. Without divulging Joe's entire life, his first encounter with the IRS came when in 1994 his company, Prowess Engineering, came into a smidge of hot water after failing to file a state tax return. This hyucky-wucky, paired with a divorce in 1998, resulted in him, frankly, being broke. So, when his now ex-wife filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy over $126,000 worth of federal tax liabilities, Joe was a smidge peeved. After all, something American dream. So that was strike one. Strike two came when his other company, Software Systems Service Corp., would also get kiboshed in 2004 for unpaid taxes. You are probably starting to notice a pattern. And yes, he did own two companies at once. That is actually rather common for upstarts alongside tycoons. Despite this obvious money trouble, Joe still had his hobbies, and being self-employed and willingly unburdened by the clutches of federal thieves, he had a fair chunk of change to play around with. And what was his preferred form of R&R? Flying. Our boy Joe had a pilot's license, and he was rather fond of soaring the skies, with his preferred haunt being his rented hangar in Georgetown Municipal Airport in Texas. For context, his rented hangar was about $230 a month, which may not sound like a lot, but considering that he had the IRS actively auditing him, his bitch ex-wife to deal with, his two companies just completely fucking imploding, and the fact that he had to procure and care for his two aircraft, a Velocity Elite XLRG, and more importantly, a Piper Dakota, he was a little bit strapped for cash. But sadly, we all have to wake up at some point, and it seems that Joe didn't like that. As such, on the morning of February the 18th, 2010, he posted a suicide note on his website. It was very broad and borderline unhinged at certain points. He went on to rail against the nature of taxation in the United States, focusing on the bailing out of major corporations at the expense of the average person. Like, for example, how airline companies got bailed out after 9/11, which disproportionately fucked over engineers at the expense of bigwigs, and the bailing out of financial firms during the 2008 crash, when these firms are what fucking caused it. And how the Catholic Church is the Catholic Church so far as they get exemptions from tax for being the Catholic Church. He described how he got betrayed by an accountant that he had hired who had sided with the government and actually did their job, which was to accurately record financial data. To the surprise of absolutely no one, the note goes into great detail about how his visceral hatred for the IRS only grew as the years went on, and how despite this, Joe was pragmatic. He thought, don't go for the main office in Austin, instead let's go for the smaller echelon compound, as that building is not only smaller, so his method of martyrdom will do a lot more damage, and also because the echelon building specifically focuses on asset seizures, collections, and if you hadn't already guessed it, audits. Despite the absolute heat that he does spit throughout the note, it ends on a tastefully cringe scrawl that goes as such. I saw it written once that the definition of insanity is repeating the same process over and over and expecting the outcome to suddenly be different. I am finally ready to stop this insanity. Well, Mr. Big Brother IRS man, let's try something different. Take my pound of flesh and sleep well. The communist creed, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. The capitalist creed, from each according to his gullibility, to each according to his greed. Just for the record, taxation under communism is so much worse. He was now at the point of no return. He set fire to $230,000 and his house, like the funny society man, and then he made his way to his hangar and boarded his Piper Dakota. With a spurring of the propellers and a little au revoir to the control tower, his fate was sealed at 9:45 a.m. CST. As Joe approached the echelon building, he started to nosedive, aiming straight for it. He screamed banzai as he enacted every libertarian's wet dream and crashed his plane directly into the echelon building. The resulting explosion and fire consuming the entire complex and was a general inconvenience to the 190 people who were inside. Somehow, only 2 people died. Joe, of course, and one, Vernon Hunter, who was a 68-year-old revenue office group manager whose office was just in a very, very fucking unfortunate location. With such a low fatality count, it shouldn't be that shocking that the list of injured people wasn't particularly bad either, as there were only 13 non-fatal casualties due to debris falling on the adjacent highway. After quelling the initial burst of flames, a bomb disposal team was sent in to check if Joe was a cheeky boy and decided to plant a boombox in his shitty Dakota. Thankfully, they weren't required. So, how much damage did Joe's kamikaze strike do to the IRS? Well, it rounded out to around $38 million in damages and costs. That might sound like quite a lot, but haha fucking no, this is chump change to any federal agency, let alone the government-mandated Thieves Guild who could just conveniently audit a couple of million extra out of a bunch of random people at the drop of a hat. $6 million was spent on immediate repairs to the building, half of which specifically went into recovering all of the singed and tattered documents of the people that they were auditing, because of fucking course they did. As for the remaining $32 million, well, that was spent on nondescript security upgrades. What type of upgrades would they employ to stop planes from going into their buildings? I don't know, but I don't think they've installed synchronised arrays of Phalanx CIWSs in their office car parks. That would be just ridiculous. Sadly for Joe, his little stunt ended up doing basically nothing in terms of interrupting the financial pillaging of the IRS, as they managed to resume operations in the region almost immediately. Because the only time government services actually work efficiently is when they want your money. Obviously, the wider government were completely apoplectic over this event. NORAD scrambled F-16s to patrol the general airspace in case of more planes, because, as America learned the hard way, there is sometimes a second plane, and Homeland Security and the FBI immediately scrambled to find anything they could on Joe to further their interests, and sadly for them, they found fuck all. That black guy Obama got briefed on the events because, of course he was. Tech companies like Facebook immediately fell in line and removed any re-uploads of the manifesto. You know, the usual responses to such events to prevent copycat attacks or to stop people realising how truly awful the IRS is. But I think most Americans already know. Now, in the House of Representatives, they were, as usual, bickering over the wording like a gaggle of overpaid pedants. They were debating as to whether Joe's actions were considered a terrorist attack. Why? Well, probably because this was still in the post-9/11 obsession with terrorist attacks, especially with the boogeyman of those who were domestically grown and not easily identifiable by being diverse. Of course, some people had sympathy for the actions of Joe Stack, like famed corpse and linguistic antichrist Noam Chomsky, who for whatever reason chimed in with his take that indeed Joe had genuine grievances. Kinda based. Except for the fact that he immediately equated Joe to the people of Weimar Germany, who had genuine concerns left unanswered and then went on to become the demonetized Germans. Because, of course, any sort of non-big government shenanigans must immediately be equated to the funny Reddit Reich. So, where does that leave us now? Well, Joe decided to rage against the machine and not be cringe about it. Despite not achieving anything lasting in his holy war against taxes, he did actually cost the government far more money than they would have gotten from their audit of him. So, in a way, he did kind of get the last laugh. He also gave us a short and sympathetic yarn about man's struggles against the binding nature of red tape and government or some shit. In summation, it's a story that for legal reasons I once more have to disavow. Do not do this. Do not fly a prop aircraft into IRS buildings.
It's Count Dankula on YouTube. Everybody should subscribe.